Welcome to the Midweek College Football Breakdown. My name is the AntMan, your host. Did you forget me? He's Brandon Stevens. He's Dalton Miller. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. I took a little sabbatical. It was about 4 weeks, starting some other podcasts, get those up and rolling. Had to come back and hang with our boys. And I'm glad to be here with you because we get to talk some football, college football, one more time for this season, because coming up on Monday, we've got the national championship game. The Fighting Irish of Notre Dame take on the Buckeyes of Ohio State in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia. Guys, did either one of you have these at the top of your picks for the national championship game? I got my results from the bracket that we put our things in. I got the results back early going, you didn't get any of these right. You're like 100,000th place or something like that. It was ridiculous. Did either one of you have these guys in, Brandon?
No, I mean, none of the 4 teams with the bye, which I only thought 2 of them were legitimate in Oregon and Oregon and Georgia, but none of the 4 teams with the bye even won a game. Yeah. So please, committee, change the way things happen next year.
Right?
I mean, I picked Oregon to win the national championship at the beginning of the season. I stuck with it. Ohio State just buried them in that game, and so I think that's where we end up. And then I don't even remember who I had them playing when I filled out my bracket once the playoffs came out.
I don't remember mine either, if I'm being honest.
I think Georgia, honestly. I think I had Georgia and Oregon. But I mean, Georgia without their starting quarterback, he's hurt. Now he's in Miami via the transfer portal. I didn't have either one of these teams, that's for sure.
Dalton, did you fill out 5 or 6 brackets and one of them had these 2 in it?
Man, just one. Couldn't talk.
Did you really?
Couldn't talk myself into doing multiple. I wanted to stick to what I had, but
I thought you were saying one of them had these 2. I was like,
oh no! I just filled out one. Yeah,
okay, got it.
I don't like to be that person that's like, hey, I had a great bracket, but then all 15 of my other ones sucked. So yeah. I mean, you could sit there. It'd be a lot easier with college football to go through all of the different scenarios and figure out how to get a right one than it would college basketball March Madness, just because of the amount of teams. But no, definitely I had Notre Dame winning a game. You know, I picked them to beat Indiana, but I didn't have them getting past that. I also, the way Ohio State's playing, it doesn't surprise me that they're here. But even if they would have beaten Tennessee, I just expected Tennessee to show up and actually play football in the first round. And so, since then, Ohio State just has been unstoppable, and it doesn't surprise me that they're there, but they were not in my national championship game either. But here we are.
It was after that first week that I think had a lot of people scratching their heads going, hang on, if they play like that, everybody's bracket is busted. And good to know that now we have 2 times a year we can have busted brackets. Not just March anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Also be December, January. That's awesome. Thank you. That's what we needed. More letdown. But 2025 off to an interesting start when it comes to college football. This is when there's chatter throughout the entire season, obviously, from fans and from coaches. Lane Kiffin wasn't quiet the entire season. That's for sure.
That was a lot of fun to pay attention to.
Absolutely was. Great follow on Twitter, on X, if you don't follow him, because that's just fun watching. You should do that now so you can get ready for next season. But it's really this time when all the coaches get together and start having conversations. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. But one of the big takeaways is clearly a lot to talk about when it comes to the changes, not only the 12-team playoff, but teams' schedules as well. And Joel Klatt had some thoughts here. I thought I'd play.
We need more games of Power 4 against Power 4. Preferably, everybody is going to play a similar number or the same number of conference games. And as commissioner, that's what I would mandate. Every conference is going to play the same number of conference games. And then I also believe that we need to take away scheduling from athletic directors. Like, we don't let NFL owners build their own schedule. So why in the world do we let athletic directors build their own schedule? I think that needs to be a centralized process. And if we do that, we can increase the valuable inventory 5, 6, 7, 10-fold. I'm looking at you, fans, and I'm like, I'm about to give you more of what you want. How do we do this? We've got to have an aligned schedule format. That's where we've got to start. And as commissioner, my suggestion for an aligned scheduling format, which every team would take part in, is a 9-1-2 model. Follow me here. 9-1-2. Every team in the country, 9 conference games. Every team in the country, 1 non-conference game against another Power 4 opponent. And every team in the country, 2 games against the group of 5 to help with their budget. So that's how I'm getting to 12. Everybody would play the exact same format.
No more 3-6-9. Damn, she's fine. No, it is now 9-2-1, at least proposed there by Joel Klatt. And why does it feel like, though, that anytime some sensible thought when it comes to, ironing some of these wrinkles out are the first ones to get thrown into the trash can? Brandon, thoughts on what Joel had to say here?
I mean, I love it. I love it.
Same.
I sent this to the group chat earlier. I absolutely love this idea because what it does is it takes away at the end of the season when you're starting to look at brackets and you're going to the playoff committee, it takes away the thought, well, nobody in here played a Power 5 conference or played a Power 5 school in non-conference. They played their easy Big 12 schedule, or they played their weak SEC schedule, Texas, or, everybody has to play. And you know what? I know that it's going to end up with some of these teams are going to get Vanderbilt as their one power. Some of these teams are going to get, insert bad Big Ten team here, Nebraska, whatever. Tell Michaela I said hi, Dalton.
Yes, exactly.
It's just the first one that popped in my head. But, I love this idea because it gets us away from the Indianas getting in the playoffs, right? Because I see the opposite side of Indiana's argument when it comes to this. Indiana's like, look, we played who was put in front of us, and we beat them all except for Ohio State. Yeah, but who'd you play in non-conference? A bunch of directional schools. So if in non-conference they play Tennessee or South Carolina or Auburn or somebody like that, they can then have an argument. But we saw what happened to Indiana once they got to the playoffs, right? It takes away a lot of that and actually gives some like opponents to other teams that played, we'll say that played Tennessee or whoever they played as their one, bring some like opponents into the fray, and then you can make a educated decision from there. I don't like the fact that Indiana played nobody. Their only loss was to Ohio State, and then they get into the playoffs and get demolished. It's no different than Cincinnati making the 4-team playoffs a few years ago when they got demolished with Desmond Ridder at quarterback. I mean, it's no different. I love the idea. Absolutely love it.
Dalton, can enough people agree to make something like this happen?
What is enough people? Because I can tell you right now, the group that doesn't like it is one team that's playing in the national championship game, and that's Notre Dame, because they've learned that it actually benefits them to be now, an independent team, because it doesn't matter who you play as long as those conferences go and beat up on each other enough and you only lose one game, regardless of who it's to. You can't lose in a conference game. So then, to Lane Kiffin's point, they don't have to worry about playing in that conference championship game. So I love what Joel Klatt proposed there. I think that's something we've all talked about, is getting everybody on the exact same format, because it just makes sense. And I think that if we do something like this, it's got to force Notre Dame to go join a conference. That's what I would love to see at that point. The other thought I have when he mentions the ADs making the schedule, I'm speaking from a basketball perspective here, but coaching in small colleges, I've gotten the opportunity to play Division I institutions, right? And why the ADs decide to take over for football but not other sports doesn't make sense, because when we got calls to schedule and go play these Division I teams, hey, here's how much money we can pay you, all that stuff, it's their coaches that are contacting us to schedule these games, right? So why for football is it opposite? Because maybe, if you asked, Indiana, did you really want to play the three nobodies in non-conference? Because you got to be thinking to yourself, like in a year where they don't make the playoff, they've got to be like, well, if it's up to us, we're going to start pushing ourselves a little bit more in the early season to where we can challenge our guys, we can actually see where we're at, and we can know where we need to get better to try and beat an Ohio State. Because at the end of the day, they got blown out by arguably now the very best team in college football. Like, they couldn't even compete with the best team in college football. Mm-hmm. Why are they in the playoff? So yeah, I love what Joel Klatt has to say about it. I think that it would be amazing to centralize everything and get on the same format.
Well, I think
something we're going to see in the next 5 years is we're going to see the Power Four school or the Power Four conferences, move away from conference football or move away from NCAA football. They're still going to be in conferences, but I think they're going to end up moving away from NCAA football and basically forming their own. I don't know what they call it, if they just call it the CFB or what, but they're going to form their own. And this is going to be directly involved with actually hiring a commissioner of Division I football. And then you're going to have, 12 teams or 12 games a year from these Power Four schools actually playing Power Four schools.
Right.
Maybe throwing one group of school in there.
Well, and I think that's College Football League. Just keep it simple.
That's the same thing, though. I think that's the same thought of who can you get enough people to agree. And I think it's those people, the people who could agree to move schools out. If they can agree on something like this, it's enough to push people like Notre Dame who don't want to, lack of a better term, play ball when it comes to this, that they're pushed out of stuff like this. If Notre Dame doesn't want to be part of the Power Four, you're not playing these guys, and you're not playing with the best.
I mean, and listen, Notre Dame's looking back at this season and just counting their bank account, because
they are.
Ohio State, every win Ohio State makes, they're having to share with the other teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah,
the money. And
Notre Dame's not.
You know who's not? Notre Dame. They're not having to share with the other independent schools even. They're sharing with themselves. So they are just rolling in the money for every win they make and every one of these games they play in. So, I mean, I think that does, at that point, that makes Notre Dame join a conference unless they want to be the group of 5 national champion every year.
I think they do have to send some back to the Vatican or
something. Maybe.
In addition to proposed changes to teams' schedules, we had the NCAA coaches meeting happen this week as well. It was on Wednesday, but the transfer portal was one of the big topics. Looking at moving the dates of a transfer portal, making it either last longer or just moving when it starts and when it ends, and also the faking of injuries. Let's start with the transfer portal. Brandon, thoughts on what they're bringing up with these dates? What do you got here?
So what the coaches have proposed here is to open the transfer portal on the 2nd of January, close it on the 12th of January. So you have a 10-day transfer cycle. What this would do is it would allow more players from teams that are involved in the playoffs to actually make it available, make the portal available for their players after they lose. I think it's dumb. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think moving the transfer portal to later in the year or to the beginning of the next year is great. My disdain with it is if they did that this year, I mean, we're already past the 12th. We're already past when it would be closed, and we still have 2 teams playing. If you're going to move it, and I understand they're trying to keep enrollment and those things available for these guys that want to enroll in the spring semester. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to move it, you've got to be able to make some adjustments and make some exceptions for players that may come in a little bit late. And
so basically, if you're going to do it all the way or don't do it at all.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Because right now they have 2 transfer portals. You have the one in December, right? And then you have the dead period, and then you have the one after spring ball,
right?
To where somebody can enter the transfer portal, get there in the fall, but then you haven't been with that team, so the chances of you, unless you're an elite player, the chances of you getting on the field for the beginning of that season at least are minimal. This would take away the spring transfer portal and only go to one portal. If I say if you're going to do it, you do it the day after the national championship game. Open it for 10 days. Whoever enters, whoever gets picked up, it happens. If you don't, that's on you. That would be my suggestion.
What complications does that bring, pushing the transfer portal till after the national championship?
Well, I mean, a lot of what he just talked about, right? I mean, I think that if you push it to after, you've just got to make sure that you move up everything. Okay? I mean, that's kind of what somebody's going to get impacted no matter what. So push up the national the championship game. Quit taking, like we talked about, Georgia and Oregon took 25 and 26 days off before playing a football game. Get rid of the breaks in the college football. They need to play every 7 days. I think we mentioned it. Uncle B mentioned it in the pre-podcast meeting. Just go ahead and compete with the NFL if you have to. People love college football. They want to watch the playoffs. We don't need to take so many breaks from these games. And then when it's all said and done, when you open up the portal, there's going to still be time to get transferred and get enrolled in classes before enrollment ends for these kids. And so that's the big deal right there. I get that they've got to worry about academics, but it kind of cracks me up that they act like they care about academics right now, because none of that matters at all. They act like, hey, this is a big deal. Let's make sure that we're not messing with the timeline of academics, and they have time to move and get in class and enroll and all that stuff. Well, at the end of the day, you don't care about academics when you're allowing a kid to be in his 6th year. This kid he can't go to class anymore. He's in his 6th and 7th year of college football so that he can make money. Yeah. I mean, going all the way back to what we talked about on Diego Pavia. I mean, the court literally ruled that he could come back another year specifically because he would have lost NIL money. So now everybody in the country is throwing a fit about this, and everybody don't care about academics. So get rid of that. First off, don't come with me at that argument. But yeah, I'm a believer. I said it before we started the podcast. Even if the portal wasn't a topic, we need to quit with these 20-day breaks before teams get to play a playoff game. Like, I hate those. I think teams hate those. You don't go anywhere in the season. There's not a 20-day break.
Yeah, and I get it. If you don't play in your conference championship, you're going to have a week off between your last regular season game. But there are a plethora of teams in this college football playoff that didn't play in their college football or in their conference championship. If that's the case, you have 1 week off. I think they need to play the conference championship and go right in the next weekend to the playoffs. Yeah. And then you end up basically with 1 week in December. Or 1 week in January that you're playing a playoff game if you make it all the way to the national championship.
Well, and I mean, Diego and Cam, I believe, already have 3 degrees each, right? So
they might have stopped after 1 and just said it's time to just be a professional college athlete.
Which is we're not far from that right now, Harvey.
I think Cam has finished his PhD by now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dr. Cam is back on the field.
Exactly.
He's going to be able to surgically fix his knee between plays and then, continue to play.
Exactly.
He operates on
all right,
his
so
knee.
The other that's a different kind of doctor, I think, than what he got. Fake injuries is another big topic. Dalton, I want to start with you on this one. It was a big topic, especially in the SEC after they instituted the fines and what have you that they were going to impose on coaches and teams if they continue doing these faking injuries to get a timeout without actually calling a timeout. What are some of the things that they're proposing in this coaches meeting on Wednesday to was it on Wednesday? I said it was on Wednesday. Was that right?
Well, it was Monday, Tuesday, and today. It didn't.
Okay, got it. So the whole deal is that they want to impose some other sanctions holistically if teams are having players fake injuries. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously frustration from the coaches, and we've heard that from prior weeks, but man, it's like that people are finally starting to listen to our podcast here because we've been saying this for how long? Everybody's complaining about the fake injury, but nobody actually provides solutions on how to do it. And we've said for a long time coming now, just make them sit the entire series. And that was something that was proposed in these meetings. The coaches finally were like, look, you have to sit. There's no more going out for a play and coming back in because then we know you weren't actually injured, right? There's no way you were actually injured. If you can hop up, walk off the field, and then hop back on the very next play. And Unc mentioned it a little bit ago, and he can talk a little bit more about this in his thoughts, but taking it a step further and saying you got to sit the rest of the quarter. And of course that gets dicey with, do you fake an injury with 2 minutes into the quarter and now you got to sit for 13, or do you wait until the last 30 seconds to fake it and you're only sitting for 30 seconds? I mean, I don't care if they go that far, if that's what they choose to do, but if you want to stop this, I mean, the big thing is they're going down for a reason. They want to slow down the offense and force you to not be able to 100%. Continue to play fast. They want to be able to get their subs in. So if you have to sit the rest of the series and you're one of the better defensive players that's able to be a benefit to your team and getting the stop there, all right, you aren't in this series anymore. So I think to me, that works great. But that's my opinion, and that's something that was proposed, and I hope they go with it.
B, dig in here.
Well, how many times this year, I'm backing up for visual purposes. How many times this year have we seen coaches on the sideline go like this?
Absolutely.
Telling players to fall down. You know what? How many times are we going to see that if they know that their best defensive lineman or their stud D end or their stud linebacker is going to have to sit out for the next 8 plays if this drive continues that long? How many times are we going to see that now? We're not going to see that near as much. Like Dalton said, I mean, some of the coaches were wanting them to have to sit out the rest of the quarter. I get it. I mean, I get it. As a team that, for some of the years or for some of the season, tried to run a fast-paced offense. And as a team that, being OU, that next year is going to run a fast-paced offense with Ben Arbuckle, I get it. The frustration is amazing, and you end up with a 2-minute timeout with the person laying on the ground, and they're like, what's wrong? He's like, nothing. I just wanted to slow this down. And they sit there and talk for 2 minutes. They go to commercial. They come back. They're still laying on the ground. They finally get up. They start. I mean, it's a joke. It's ridiculous. It pisses me off that teams are doing it. But at the same time, it's the way the rules are written right now. So it's allowed. And those guys that were on the ground for 4 minutes, a 3-minute timeout, and 1 minute coming back into the those guys sit out one play on 2nd and 4 and come back in on 3rd and 1, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal to an offense. You take me out of my rhythm, you take me out of my gameplay, and you put me into the spot where now we've all had plenty of time. You've had plenty of time as a defense to prepare for what I'm going to do offensively, which is why I was running a fast-paced offense in the first place. So you didn't have that time. So I like it. I think it needs to happen. Like Dalton said, we've talked about this so many times, and our suggestion, my suggestion, his suggestion, both of our suggestions have been this whole time, make them sit the rest of that series. If they have to sit the rest of that series, it's going to keep them from going down. And I mean, there's going to be ways to get around it. because on a 1st and 17 or a 2nd and 17, they're going to put some scrub in now at safety. And after that play, he's going to fall down and come out, and they're going to put their starter back in. I mean, there's going to be ways to get around it for these guys, but something has to be done. And one other thing they said that I didn't bring up in our pre-podcast meeting or on the text string, hadn't been brought up yet. The option was given for the option in the meetings today with the coaches was given for if you use a timeout, you can use a timeout at that point. The guy can come back immediately, even if he's supposed to be out for a series, if that's what they make the rule. I think they're going to give coaches the opportunity to say, no, that was a real injury. We're going to call timeout here so we can have that player back in the game. I think they're going to give them that opportunity. But, I mean, it's just gamesmanship. I mean, it really is. It boils down to gamesmanship and bad gamesmanship on the defensive side that just did it religiously, like Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin.
Bad. Have you guys ever watched like a Middle Eastern soccer game? They'll have a guy go up for a header and just get completely jackknifed, and the dude is like cut in half from at the waist, and they have two guys with a little stretcher, and they run out and they throw him on the stretcher and they run off. They didn't do that for every single injury, real or not. Just get him off the field and keep things rolling. Maybe that's what we put in.
Maybe. I mean, talk to Elon Musk. Maybe he can get some electronic stretcher or something.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Somebody's over on the sideline controlling it. They drive it out to him. He hops on it.
No, nobody drives it. Those things drive themselves. It's a brand new Tesla stretcher.
Right. Until the battery explodes.
So no news, maybe not necessarily good news. We don't know yet in the world of Oklahoma's defensive coordinator and the search. Some rumblings that Knowles could be the front runner, but it wouldn't make sense for anyone to comment on any of that until after Monday's game. Brandon, you're the closest because that's all pretty much in Oklahoma they talk about on the radio is Oklahoma football. So what are you hearing right now when it comes to the DC job?
Man, I'm hearing right now that Oklahoma has asked for permission to speak to him before the season was over. They've spoken to him, apparently, and it sounds like the number that Ohio State is going to offer him after this year is somewhere around $3 million a season. So if OU can dig into their pockets a little bit and come close to that, it sounds like he wants to come back to Oklahoma. It's an interesting situation because we've heard a lot of rumblings about this fiance or this girlfriend or whatever that apparently lives in the city here. But then if you go Google Jim Knowles and Jim Knowles' wife, they've been married for decades. And
doesn't mean it doesn't have a girlfriend in Oklahoma.
Right. I don't know. You're right. And so I don't really know what's going on.
Look, Dalton right now is looking. He's over there on his phone. He's checking it all out.
Dalton's Googling Jim Knowles'
girlfriend. Yeah. There you go.
So I don't know. I mean, it sounds
Tinder
like
profile.
Right.
Yeah.
It sounds like that Jim Knowles is really interested, which to me is very interesting. Why you would want to leave a team in that stature to come to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe it is a girl thing.
Money. Yeah.
Maybe he is not with his wife anymore, and that's just not out publicly. I don't know.
Somebody hasn't updated Wikipedia.
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It sounds like OU has the money together to give to him that's going to come close to matching or completely matching what Ohio State sounds like they're going to give him at the end of the season. Here's the deal. We're not going to know anything until at the earliest next Tuesday after the national championship game.
Okay.
So if he decides to come here, it's going to be interesting because I don't think he's coming here with the thoughts that he's got to run Brent Venables' defense.
Oh, it'll be his own thing. That's what he's good at, right?
Right. And I think, honestly, I mean, I feel like this. I don't know how you guys feel. his defense was better than OU's this year. I mean, his defense didn't even give up 13 points a game this season. So for Jim Knowles to only be giving up 12.7, 12.9, depending on where you look, points a game this season, he has a great defensive scheme.
It helps when you have a competent offense.
Yeah, and we've all seen him because he was at Oklahoma State before he went to Ohio State.
Did Oklahoma State have a good defense then?
Oklahoma State had a really good defense then. Okay. And so
I don't remember that one.
I mean, we've all seen him, so it's gonna. I don't know. I don't know why you come back to Oklahoma unless it is for a woman. I guess women run the world, but I don't know. I don't know. It sounds like we have the money if he's willing to come. Sounds like he's going to come.
It's a Dire Straits song. It's money for nothing and chicks for free. Don't you know that, right?
Yeah.
Come on.
Dude, I'm telling you, chicks aren't free. I mean, I've been married 27 years and I know chicks aren't free.
Because you're not a rock star. That's why. You're a rock star. Like Jim Knowles, it is. So.
Right. I mean, I'm not making $3 million a year, that's for sure.
Then they're free. It's time to hit some picks because we got a big game on Monday. I don't know if y'all heard. National championship game. That's not over yet. College football not over yet. Not until Monday. Jim Knowles. He's playing against against the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. Yes, the Buckeyes taking them on in Atlanta. So if I count correctly, Brandon, you get to pick first. And since there's no other games, this is the only game we're picking. So who do you have for the national championship? And if you both have the same team, then we'll move over to points. Brandon, you first.
So, I mean, this is a big game. I mean, Riley Leonard, Notre Dame's quarterback, somehow made enough plays to get them there. Sorry, Chief, but I know, and you guys know Chief from last week. Yeah. Sorry, Chief. I know that he's done enough to get here. I just don't see them putting up a lot of points on this Ohio State defense. This Jim Knowles Ohio State defense, we just talked about it, hadn't even averaged giving up 13 points a game. And I feel like Will Howard's thrown for almost 3,800 yards and 33 touchdowns this season is just going to outduel Riley Leonard. Both of them have legs that I wouldn't call running quarterbacks, but they can both extend some plays, scramble a little bit. I think the difference comes in the wide receiver game. I mean, you got Jeremiah Smith for Ohio State, who's the freak 17-year-old, freshman.
That's right.
I mean, he's got 71 receptions for 1,227 yards and 14 touchdowns through the air on the season. And you look over at Notre Dame, and their leading receiver has 464 yards and 2 touchdowns this year. That's Jaden Greenhouse. I don't think there's any way Notre Dame keeps this within the spread. The spread is 8 by Ohio State. I really see Ohio State winning this by 14, 17 points. And so that's my pick. I'm going to take Ohio State minus the 8 in the national championship against Notre Dame.
Dalton, before your pick, let me get this straight. We have 2 17-year-old millionaires playing football in college?
It's dumb, right?
Lord have mercy. Dalton, you taking the Fighting Irish? You sticking with the Buckeyes?
Absolutely not. Sorry, Chief. Not sorry. I said it. Riley Leonard has to throw for more than 90 yards to win last week, and he did. I think it was 190 yards. He made some plays, did a good job. Ohio State is a better football team, and I will not be happy as a college football fan if Notre Dame, the team that lost at home to Northern Illinois, wins a national title. That's a joke. This whole playoff, in a lot of ways, has not been set up well. And I'm hoping that Ohio State continues to play dominant football. I mean, even last week, they played dominant football, but they self-destructed in a lot of ways on penalties. That killed them in a lot of ways against Texas. And even when it came down to it, they we're just a better football team and we're able to make more plays. And, I loved that it ended up with it being a strip sack on Quinn Ewers late in the game
from his roommate,
from his ex-roommate. That was amazing.
Right. Yeah.
But the way Ohio State's playing, they haven't not covered yet in the game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to continue to rock with Ohio State. Good teams win, great teams cover. And I think that, as we said earlier, not predicted, but they're the best team in the playoff right now. And I hope that continues.
Just in case you both pick the same team, ask you both to send in your total score, combined score, both teams into the game, and the closest to the final actually ends up winning. And it's not whoever's closest to the final without going over anything. It's just the closest number. So back to Brandon. Let's have your total score, both teams combined. What do you got?
So for some clarity, Dalton and I are completely tied.
Yeah, you're tied right now.
After Notre Dame won last week.
Yep.
I picked Notre Dame because
moving
I needed
all
to.
season, and you're tied at the end of the season.
I picked Notre Dame because I needed to in order to catch up with Dalton, because I knew we would both end up picking Ohio State this week, and he had picked Penn State. So, yes, we got to go to total points. I'm picking 43 points.
43 points total.
I'm picking 43-point total. The over-under, I believe, is like 46 or 46 and a half.
I think it was 45 and a half before.
Yeah, it opened up 46 and a half, and it's down to 45 and a half. Okay. I'm picking 43 points total in this game, and Dalton's going to owe me a round of golf after this season.
So are you going under him, or are you going over that, Dalton?
I'm going to go over it. I'm going to, like you said, the over was 45 and a half. I'm going to go with 47 total.
I knew you were picking 47.
Okay. Closest to the final score wins the round of golf. Where are you guys playing?
Wherever we could play here in the city whenever he comes down.
Yeah, we played Lincoln. We even got
cheapest place when he comes to visit. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, maybe we can play Colbert Hills. Maybe I'll come up there. We can play Colbert.
Definitely. But we just need to play it when it's not. The very first time we did this and I came down, we played in like 45-mile-per-hour winds. It was stupid.
three quarters of the days, right? Were we at Trosper?
We were at Lincoln West.
Were we at Lincoln?
Yeah.
I just remember, I don't know if it's hole 14, 15, 16, 17. And maybe hole 15. There was that par 3. It's like 200 yards. I hit a 3-wood, and I was like 40 yards short of the green.
I'll never forget when I had the wind in my back and I was piping my driver, and I never
the green's over there.
And he's like, "Hey, the green's that way." It's like 350 yards. And I'm like, I'm going for it because I had the wind.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hit it
the right direction.
He told me to hit it. And we get up there, and the green's like 40 yards to the left. I would have drove the green too,
dude. And you were a hole high. You would have been a 5-foot putt for eagle.
We get up there and he's like, "Oh, I guess the green's that way."
You hit it right where he told you. But you both grew up in Oklahoma. You know that's 3/4 of the time. That's what the wind is in Oklahoma.
Yeah, that day was just brutal though.
100 miles an hour.
It was gnarly that day.
It was so windy.
And we were in the same cart. We couldn't hear each other.
Yeah, I've been there, done that. My drives are exactly the same whether it's windy or not. They're always 40 feet from wherever they're supposed to be. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, from the women's team for sure. Absolutely. Typically, next week would be the final show of the season until the next football season started. However, we are going to run over the national championship and then have something special to share with you guys. And that'll be, we're going to do away with some things, maybe some words in the title, and give you some more sports here on this podcast. We'll talk about it more next week here on the Midweek College Football Breakdown. And so looking forward to that. Looking forward to discussing this game in the middle of all the action on Monday. Yeah. One more college football game for the season, and I'm excited for it. Hopefully it's a good one, and it's not like one of those first games this season or in this playoff.
I mean, I hope it's a good one, but honestly, and I'll say it again, sorry, Chief, I hope Ohio State wins by 6 touchdowns. and Dalton ends up winning because the point score is, or the point total.
You'd be okay with that?
Well, if they get 6 touchdowns, what is that? 42 points, and Notre Dame doesn't score, then I still win.
42-0. You're chill.
And you still win. That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
So, hey, guys, it's been a blast. College football season wrapping up. We're not necessarily wrapping up because we're going to talk a little bit more sports, but we'll tell you a little bit more about that next week. But, guys, you know what they say, right?
The weekend is good,
but the midweek is always better.
And boom goes the dynamite.